You could feel the tension the moment Kevin Hart walked on stage at the 2025 BET Awards. The crowd was buzzing, phones already out, expecting a few laughs. But no one, literally no one, was ready for what came next. Kevin paused, looked dead into the camera, and with that classic smirk of his, dropped a roast that would shake the internet to its core. "You know what I love about Meghan Markle?" he said. "She's like a Pinterest board that came to life, and then hired a PR team to filter it." The audience exploded. Laughter, gasps, phones flying up. Meme Meg started trending before he even finished his next sentence. But this wasn't just another joke at a celebrity's expense. It wasn't playful or harmless. It was targeted, calculated, and it hit like a punch to the gut. Because Kevin didn't just roast Meghan.
That she is under the impression that went in her way, that was a huge success for her. I think that she thinks she's like Princess Diana and curating her own headlines, and she does things like the Disney vomit.
He exposed her on live TV during a celebration of Black excellence with millions of people watching. No editing, no filters, no PR team to clean it up. Just raw, unfiltered humiliation. And Meghan couldn't do a thing about it. It didn't take long for the clip to go viral. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The comment sections were a battlefield. Some were howling with laughter. Others were stunned that Kevin dared to go there. But the reaction was loud, immediate, and impossible to ignore. People weren't just reacting to the joke. They were reacting to what it represented. Because deep down, a lot of viewers felt like Kevin said what everyone else had been too afraid to say. For years, Meghan has curated every second of her public image. Every appearance, every interview, every quote. It all felt meticulously crafted to control the narrative. But this was live, unscripted, and totally out of her hands. It wasn't some sneaky tabloid whispering rumors. It was a comedian, center stage, pointing straight at the elephant in the room and making the whole world laugh at it. And that's what made it sting. This wasn't behind closed doors. It wasn't subtle. It was public, loud, and relentless. Meghan Markle, once treated like royalty, literally, was now the punchline to a viral joke. And not because of anything new she did, but because of everything she's been doing for years finally catching up with her. And here's the part that really stunned people. She wasn't even in the building. Not because she didn't want to be.
Weird. She shuts down the twerking criticism. Now she's Mommy of the Year. But also, why do we get 30,000 posts for the daughter and one for the son? Like, clearly there's a favorite there.
Yeah, that's a good, I hadn't thought about that.
But because she wasn't invited. According to multiple insiders, Meghan actually requested to attend the BET Awards. She didn't just want to show up quietly either. She wanted to be part of the program. But her name, it got shut down immediately. BET organizers didn't even hesitate. Their reason? Her presence would be a distraction. Not from gossip or controversy, but from the actual meaning of the show. Let that sink in. Meghan Markle, once praised as a modern icon, was told that she didn't fit the energy of the room. This wasn't some minor rejection. This was a clear message. She no longer represents the values that night was built to celebrate. And that's when things went from bad to brutal. Because this isn't just about one event or one joke. It's about the slow and public unraveling of a brand that used to feel untouchable. The same woman who sat with Oprah, walked through royal halls, and dominated global headlines couldn't even get her name past the first round of guest list discussions. And the worst part? That rejection didn't come out of nowhere. It followed months of misfires. Most notably, the colossal failure of her Netflix series with Love Meghan. What was supposed to be her big return, her deeply personal project, ended up being one of the most mocked productions of the year. Critics tore it apart. Audiences tuned in expecting honesty, raw emotion, something meaningful. What they got felt more like an aesthetic fever dream. Handwritten notes on mason jars, ribbon-wrapped lemons, perfectly lit conversations about motherhood that looked more rehearsed than real. The show wasn't moving. It was painfully artificial. One critic called it a narcissist's daydream. Another didn't even bother being polite. They just called it vomit with filters. Harsh, yes, but not entirely wrong. Because no matter how beautiful the shots were, no matter how soft the lighting looked, none of it felt authentic. Even Meghan's most loyal supporters couldn't pretend to be moved.
Woke us all up.
We're in the pursuit of joy.
I can't take it anymore. Get out, get out, get out. Uncle, make it end. Make it end. What is this? Guys, I feel like I'm a very accepting person. Truly, I want to like something about her. I'm searching for something to like about her.
Viewer engagement plummeted after episode 1. People tuned in out of curiosity and left wondering what they had just watched. And the damage didn't stop there. This wasn't just a bad review, it was a turning point. For years, Meghan's brand thrived on image, perfectly curated Instagram posts, philanthropic messaging, big speeches about authenticity. But when the curtain finally got pulled back, the illusion fell apart. There was no real connection, no rawness, just branding, just strategy, just another performance wearing the costume of vulnerability. That's when the narrative began to shift. It stopped being, what's Meghan doing next? And turned into, does anyone even care anymore? And that's exactly why Kevin's joke hit the way it did. It wasn't just funny, it was revealing. He didn't say anything new, he just said it out loud. What millions of people had been thinking for months, maybe even years, finally spilled into the open. On stage, with cameras rolling. That one-liner wasn't just a roast, it was a mirror. A reflection of what Meghan's public image had quietly become. For someone who built her platform on empathy, vulnerability, and being real, it's ironic how performative it all now feels. People used to believe her. They used to connect. But somewhere along the line, that connection got replaced by strategy. Emotional interviews started to look more like brand campaigns. Crying moments felt too polished.
Biggest stars and investors,
Right.
where they were teasing their 2025 lineup. Meghan was nowhere to be found in the paperwork. She received a brief mention when she was the butt of a joke by one of the comedians on stage.
Every appearance was so carefully arranged that the humanity got lost somewhere in the staging. And when that happens, when your audience starts to feel like they're being sold to instead of spoken to, it doesn't take much to shatter the illusion. Kevin's joke didn't cause her image problem. It just spotlighted the cracks that were already there. He didn't invent the public's disillusionment. He just gave it a punchline. Worse yet, Meghan had no defense. This wasn't the British media she could accuse of racism. This wasn't a shady gossip blog she could sue or silence. This was a room full of Black entertainers and creators, her own community, laughing without hesitation. It wasn't malicious, it was honest, and it was devastating. Backstage, Meghan was livid, not just embarrassed, furious, not because Kevin made the joke, but because she had absolutely no control over it. For someone who spent her career carefully curating every moment of her public life, this was her worst nightmare. She wasn't just the punchline, she was powerless to stop it. And that reality hit harder than the roast itself. Her team went into immediate damage control. They pushed out a story claiming Meghan had a prior private engagement that prevented her from attending the BET Awards. But it was a lie, and everyone knew it. Meghan had actively tried to be part of the show. She submitted a request to appear. She wanted to be in the room.
It's not even her kitchen. The people she surrounds herself with don't even seem to be her friends. One of them said, "Oh my gosh, you're so tall," which implies she's never even met her before. And where are the kids?
But her name was denied early in the planning process. She didn't skip the event. She was shut out of it. And that silence from BT? That wasn't indifference. It was intentional. They didn't want her presence turning the night into a spectacle. The decision had nothing to do with controversy and everything to do with credibility. Meghan had been deemed a distraction, not a draw. The worst part? There was no sympathy to be found. No tabloid scandal to deflect the heat. No accusations of racism to rally public support. This time, the backlash wasn't personal, it was professional. She had been excluded not out of hatred, but out of irrelevance. That's the part that stung. There was no PR spin to save her, no narrative reset, just silence. And while Kevin Hart moved on with the show, laughing with the crowd and owning the moment, Meghan's team was left scrambling, fumbling for a response that never came. The press didn't bite. Social media wasn't interested in excuses. And for once, the world didn't want to hear her side of the story. They had already decided. It was over. As the BET roast clip continued to circulate, the reaction didn't die down. It intensified. What started as a viral laugh turned into something bigger. The internet wasn't just laughing at Meghan anymore. It was dissecting her. Picking apart every post, every quote, every carefully staged photo, and people were no longer pulling punches. Just hours after the awards aired, comedian Catherine Ryan dropped a not-so-subtle bomb on Twitter. Real stars don't need scripted sympathy or curated tears. She didn't tag anyone. She didn't need to. The internet knew exactly who she meant. The tweet went viral almost immediately, and just like that, Meghan's silence became louder than anything she could have said.
I would love Meghan is so pointless, it might be the Sussex's last TV show. The New Statesman, another lefty rag, said, this isn't her house. Are these people her friends? Can she really cook or garden or do any of the things she coos about?
No denial, no clapback, nothing. Even her most basic social media posts started drawing side eyes. A seemingly innocent photo with her daughter triggered questions. Why always this child? Why never the other? A generic quote about mental health and transparency led to eye rolls and sarcastic replies. The trust that once existed between Meghan and the public had snapped, and now everything she shared felt performative, overly polished, and just off. The authenticity that once made her compelling had evaporated. In its place was something cold, sterile, overproduced, and the public wasn't buying it, not anymore. At this point, it wasn't just online trolls doing the damage. Quietly, the entertainment industry was turning its back. Invitations stopped coming in. Industry events she used to headline were suddenly at capacity. Studios that once fought to work with her were backing away. Executives were calling her a liability, someone who brought more noise than value. Even people who once spoke up in her defense were going quiet. It wasn't outrage that buried her, it was indifference. And that's what made it so devastating. With the public turning cold and Hollywood slowly shutting her out, Meghan tried to pivot, but not with grace. She went into full scramble mode. Suddenly, her team was pitching everything under the sun. A luxury wellness brand, a boutique wine line, even early-stage plans for opening a hotel. It wasn't strategic. It was chaotic. One idea after another, like darts thrown blindly at a wall, hoping something would finally stick. But none of it landed. And the reason was simple. Nothing had actually changed.
Knows that Meghan Markle has eaten Jack in the Box and loves it.
It's so funny, too, that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex now. You have kids, and you go, no, I share my name with my children.
The packaging was different, sure, but the product underneath was still the same. It was Meghan Markle, rebranded again, and again, and again. Every venture felt disconnected, rushed, hollow. There was no story behind it, no purpose, just more content, more press releases, more perfectly lit headshots attached to vague brand messaging. People weren't impressed, they were exhausted, because rebranding only works if there's real evolution behind it. And Meghan's problem wasn't about having the wrong look or message, it was that she hadn't grown. She hadn't adapted. She was still stuck in the same performance, just wearing a different costume. And the audience, they'd already seen the show too many times. Her attempts to reclaim relevance came off like damage control, not ambition. None of the projects felt grounded or connected to anything real. It was like watching someone slowly lose their grip, throwing ideas into the void and praying for applause that never came. But the applause had already stopped. And at this point, the room was starting to empty. At the heart of it all, there's one glaring issue Meghan still hasn't solved. No one knows who she actually is anymore. One day, she's the bold American outsider challenging royal traditions. The next, she's channeling Princess Diana with teary-eyed photo ops and speeches about emotional trauma. Then suddenly, she's a Hollywood producer. Then a podcast host. Then a lifestyle guru with Pinterest vibes and lemon-wrapped branding. each new version feels less like growth and more like confusion.
So hard because she suffers from such a rare disorder of being unable to just be a human. Do you know what I mean? I've never seen this sort of before. I've never seen someone that struggles to just give us like one strip of authenticity. Because I know other women who are listening to this podcast and totally relate. When I have my girlfriends over and we're cooking, all of us are in full glam.
It's not reinvention, it's an identity crisis. And the public sees it. People don't know what she stands for anymore. And worse, they've stopped trying to figure it out. Because at a certain point, when someone constantly shifts direction without ever landing on something solid, the audience tunes out. There's no anchor, no consistency, just noise. What once felt empowering, her boldness, her defiance, her voice, now feels hollow. The constant pivots have worn people down. Every new project sounds like a rerun. Every press tour, another spin on the same misunderstood narrative. It's become predictable in the worst way. And that predictability? It's poison in Hollywood. Because in this business, the one thing you can't be is boring. And Meghan's story, once filled with promise, power, and global fascination, has turned into a loop the public no longer wants to hear. She thought she was building a movement, but in reality, she built a brand with no foundation. And now it's collapsing under its own weight. When the BET Awards turned Meghan away, it wasn't just a scheduling decision. It was a statement, a message, and it echoed far beyond the red carpet. This was a room that celebrates authenticity, influence, and cultural relevance. And Meghan didn't make the cut. Not because she was too controversial, but because she didn't represent the moment anymore. That's what stings the most. She spent years trying to shape herself into a voice for the people, a symbol, a movement. But somewhere along the way, the image became more important than the impact. The strategy became louder than the story. And now, the very audience she worked so hard to win over has stopped clapping.
Full glam. And we're like, it's not about perfection. But then you look at what we've made and it's literally perfect. In fact, just when I make a cake, it looks just like that with my girlfriends. I look perfect. They look perfect. The cake looks perfect. But we say it's not about perfection.
Behind the scenes, the collapse is accelerating. PR advisors have quietly walked away. Netflix executives are rethinking future projects. Her Spotify deal has already vanished. The podcast didn't chart. Even the fashion world, once obsessed with every detail of her wardrobe, has moved on. The glow is gone. The shine has faded. And no amount of pastel filters or inspirational captions can bring it back. She's still pitching ideas, still chasing that next reinvention, but every move reeks of desperation. None of it feels grounded. It's not a comeback strategy. It's a scramble. And through it all, one question keeps getting louder. What is she actually trying to say? Because the truth is, even Meghan doesn't seem to know anymore. One day, she's a victim of the crown. The next, she's a Hollywood power player. Then she's the voice of mental health. Then the face of motherhood. Now she's branding wine and wellness. But none of it connects. It's just fragments, personas, performances, and people are tired. This isn't about race. It's not about the royal family. It's not even about Kevin Hart's joke. It's about something much simpler, relevance. And Meghan Markle, once one of the most talked about women in the world, is now watching the spotlight drift without her in it. The silence around her isn't passive, it's intentional. And in the entertainment industry, silence speaks louder than scandal. She wanted to be iconic. She wanted to change the game. But in chasing the spotlight, she forgot the one thing that actually makes someone unforgettable. Being real, not curated, not calculated, just real. And now, with the cameras fading and the applause long gone, she's left with the one ending no brand ever wants, an empty seat at the table.